The Hangout on air is live, so we can get started.
Okay, so hi Devon.
Hey.
So let's start the session by briefly introducing you to our participants. So guys, we have Devon connecting to us from Australia. Is running his own Drupal consultancy there. So he's one of the key persons in architecturing Drupal 8. The Drupal 8 that we have now has been majorly shaped up by Devon, and he is also a maintainer of deployed module, and he's not just that, he is maintaining 20 other modules, and he has got high standards for Drupal deployment and continuous integration. And for today's session, he is going to present on let machine do the work. I have attended this DrupalCon session. Generally, Dave Hall's sessions are not only informative, they are also fun to take up. So let's see what we have got for today. So you can get started now, Dave.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for that great introduction. I'll just get my slide deck up. So, all right. So, can you see my slides now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, today I'm presenting Let the Machines Do the Work. I know I've had a bit of an intro, but I'll give you a quick rundown. I'm Dave Hall. I'm a Drupal developer. I also write a fair bit of Python code these days, mess around with Bash, JavaScript, kind of whatever I can get my hands on. And when I get bored with dev work, I do sysadmin as well. And I've been trying to automate myself out of a job for many years. I haven't succeeded yet, so I'll have to try harder. I could go on, but that's pretty boring, so I'll jump into the presentation. Now, there's a couple of legal things we have to go through at the start of the presentation. This presentation allegedly contains material which the Jim Henson Company, Disney, Sesame Workshop, or others may be able to claim copyright over. These small pieces of alleged materials are used in this non-commercial educational presentation for the purpose of review and/or comic relief. This is protected by fair use and/or dealing provisions under US and Indian copyright law. Before issuing a DMCA takedown notice or other claim of copyright infringement, please search for Streisand effect. There's one more disclaimer I've got today. The material used in this presentation may or may not include software, services, and/or methodologies used by my clients. Even if my clients are using such things this very second, they may not continue to do so in the future. My use and/or their use of anything shown in this presentation should not be considered an endorsement. My clients, family, and dog disown any views, opinions, and/or words expressed by me or any other participant in this presentation. If you attempt to implement anything shown during this presentation, you're on your own. Don't sue me, because I'm a straw man. So, today, now we've got all of that out the way, we'll start talking about DevOps. And so, normally, like a DevOps presentation, we have to talk about Google. We know Google's got their one big repo, they've got heaps of automation, there's lots of great stuff going on at Google. Etsy has their Code as Craft. They have a whole blog on DevOps and automation, and they do fantastic stuff. Netflix, they've got their Chaos Monkey, so they can just turn things off and see what happens. Really good stuff. Facebook, you know, they developed their own version of PHP to make deployment easier. They've done a bunch of different things around automation and DevOps. Airbnb, they're a startup, so hey, they must be doing DevOps, so they've got to be in my slide deck as well. And GitHub, you know, there's lots of stuff being written about GitHub, but out of all of the companies I've mentioned so far in my presentation, GitHub is the only one that's going to get further mentions today. And no, that's not Dick Olson, who I work with. That's Chef and Puppet. Now, the thing about all of these companies and tools I've been talking about is that a lot of people think that they have to be as good as Etsy or GitHub or Google to be doing DevOps properly. And I actually think that that is the wrong attitude to take. And so during my presentation today, I'll be talking about automation and why automation can be useful and how to go about starting to introduce it to your work. So first off, why should we automate? So we've probably all heard this before: computers don't make mistakes, people do. Or as I prefer to remember it, it's the developers who make mistakes. In his book, Code Complete, Steve McConnell estimated that for every 1,000 lines of code, there was 10 to 50 defects in that code. So why would you let the people who create so many defects be in charge of your deployment process? Like, you know, we need to try to make things more reliable. So, you know, we should look at what we can do to automate things. So I've got a few little videos interspersed with my session today, and this is the first one.
IBM machines can do the work so that people have time to think.
Machines should do the work. That's what they're best at. People should do the thinking.
That's what they're best at. Machines should work. People
Should think.
Machines should work.
People should think.
Machines should work.
People should think.
So I don't do much work anymore. I'm too busy thinking.
Now, that's a snippet from an IBM promotional video from the 1970s, produced by Henson Associates, which went on to become the Jim Henson company that gave us the Muppets, Sesame Street, the Dark Crystal, and so on. Fraggle Rock's another one. So the thing I really like about this video is that rather than machines taking away people's jobs, it's talking about giving people different jobs and people having time to think about what they're doing. And as developers, a lot of the time we're under pressure to deliver. There's deadlines and there's budgets and there's all these pressures, which mean that developers think that if they mash on the keyboard harder, that then they're being better developers. And what I would like to have us think about is how we can get the machines doing the work and giving the people the time to think. So let's think of something, and we'll start off and pick something small. A simple pre-commit hook. So this pre-commit hook just helps us ensure the quality of our code. So I've got a demo here of the pre-commit hook in action. Actually, hang on, I forgot the order of my own slides. So first we'll talk about why we have the pre-commit hook. So most of you would be aware that there's the Drupal coding standards. Now the Drupal coding standards are actually really useful because it makes code consistent And when you're conducting a code review or you're working with someone else's code, you need to think less when you're working on it because the code is consistent. But some of us, we end up working with developers like this guy.
I'm sorry, I have to
Now look at this restless junk. 5 o'clock, it won't work, and then no telephone, a broken umbrella, a rusty trombone, and I am delighted to call them my own. I love them because they're trash.
Now, I'm sure we've all worked with developers who like trashy code, but it's frustrating having to work with an Oscar. So implementing this pre-commit hook will actually simplify the process. Well, it'll help make your code more consistent. So it's the first step is it's just looking for files which have changed in the current commit. It does a check to run through each of those files and runs what's called a PHP link check, which basically ensures that the PHP file will compile, like there's no syntax errors in that, because it's one of the things I find when working on project rescues and code review projects is that people miss Git merges. So you might have 2 or 3 conflicts when you do a Git merge, and some developers find the first one and stop looking to see if there's any others. And it's not until later on you find that they've committed broken code. So this stops broken code, and then the lower part checks to make sure that the code actually complies with the Drupal coding standards. So let's have a look at this in action. So here we have a little demo project. This is actually Drupal 7 because I threw it together quickly a few weeks ago. And to make it like a realistic demo, I've got some typos in there, which is to make it realistic. Now we'll add some code to this file.
You can increase the
And
font
if we
size a bit, Dave.
Sorry, it's actually a pre-recorded video.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hang on. So I can't zoom it. I am going to redo this video for Dublin, and as part of that, I will increase the font size. So we'll get the code up again. Now, I'll just pause it there. Sorry, let me. Now, so we can, actually that's not the right spot to pause. Hang on, here. So we can see here that this code clearly doesn't meet the Drupal coding standards. Now, normally a developer who commits this code, it wouldn't get picked up until...
Dave, you lost your audio. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear us? So we lost your voice, audio.
Yeah, I can you hear me now? Hang on.
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can now.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what happened there. Like, it's showing me that the audio's okay. So I'll just jump back into it. But as I was saying, we're seeing that this code just isn't good quality code, and that another developer would pick this up once it had already landed in the repository. Whereas if we use this pre-commit hook, we can prevent that. So we can see we've got the file, and we'll try to commit this change. And what we see here is PHP Code Sniffer has found a bunch of errors and has actually prevented the code being committed. Now, there's a tool called PHP CBF, or PHP Code Beautifier and Formatter, which is a partner for PHP Code Sniffer, and that actually fixes most of the problems for us. So developers don't have to be sitting there manually reformatting their code all the time. They can rely on a tool like PHP CBF to clean up most of the code for them. And we can see that here. Now we'll try to commit it. This code still isn't right because we're missing some doc blocks and the code formatting isn't right. So we'll put our doc blocks in. Fix up the function name and the callback.
Writing one piece of code.
Now, for those of you who remember Drupal 6, you'll remember the old implementation of hook syntax rather than implements, which we use for Drupal 7. And I also put a syntax error in here this time. So now it's still not going to commit because I've got the syntax error. So I'll fix that up. It's so exciting watching a demo of someone write code, I know. So now we'll fix up our last implementation of and make it implements. And now we'll commit our code, finally. Hang on. Missing the brackets. There we go. Now we've finally got our code in a state where we can commit it. And if we have a look at the Git log, there we go. So now we don't actually have dodgy code going into our repo in the first place. So that also makes the job easier for whoever has to do. How about now? Is it back?
Still no audio.
No, hang on. What about now?
We can't hear you. We can see the green bubbles on your.
Okay, that means that there should be
Yeah,
audio.
that's a good idea to chat.
So still nothing on your side? Can you hear me? I'm not sure
Can
what's
you hear
going on. Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear us? Okay, but we don't seem to be hearing you suddenly. Do you want to close and restart or something? Do you want to just try once now?
Yeah?
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's jump back into it. It's always fun presenting remotely. You never know where the problem is in the hundreds of kilometers between both sides. So database sanitization is a real problem for some projects. So companies that work in regulated industries or capture personally identifiable information in the Drupal site have to be very careful how they handle the data from that site, because in the case of one of my clients, Pfizer, some of our sites capture information about people with medical conditions and things like that, and that data just can't be shared with anyone, including developers can't have access to it. So what we have set up is a system that will actually scrub the database, and if you use Drush, there's the SQL sanitize function which will remove passwords and things like that from the database. And there's hooks implemented by modules like Paranoia, which will provide further scrubbing of the database, and you can implement additional hooks yourself. So let's have a look at how we could do
Just one second. I think it's our internal audio. Just give me a second. Because it's not loud enough. Just give me a second. Let me see if I can fix it.
Yep, sure.
Speaker.
Yeah. Can you continue now? Just.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So the model that I'm going to demonstrate today is a chatbot version of providing sanitized database dumps. So what will happen is we will drop a message in chat. It will fire off a webhook. That webhook will then call a task runner. The task runner will copy the live environment to a dedicated environment for scrubbing using Drush SQL Sanitize. It will store a copy of that in a storage backend. In this case, it's going to be Amazon S3. And then provide a link to the user, which will be valid for 10 minutes, so the user can then download that database dump to their local machine. And that database dump will have all sensitive information removed from it. So let's have a look at how it works. Of course, we're using Slack, so I will kick it off. So it's just simple !DB, the name of the source environment, and the source site and environment. So we're grabbing it from dev, and this will kick off a task on iron.io. And this takes a little bit of time for those steps to run because things need to be copied and all of that stuff. So It's really exciting just sitting here watching something like this run. I know how much everyone must be enjoying this. Sorry. Yeah. So this will be running for a few minutes. I think that's enough of Manana. Let's see if our database dump is finished. And here we go. It's finished, and it's gone and dumped it into, given us a link in Slack, which we can then download. And there we go. We've got a full copy of our database there with all of the data that's been scrubbed. So now another automation I've got to run through is deployment notifications, because one of the things that is really useful when trying to track down when something goes wrong is actually understanding the change that's been made. Now, I'm a big fan of New Relic. I think New Relic is a great tool for understanding your site, but I've talked about this in previous talks, the importance of understanding your graphs in New Relic. I've worked with some people and they only go into New Relic when there's a problem. And they see that there's a certain point where there's heavy load or something like that. And they assume that that's where the problem is, and they spend a lot of time digging into it. But it may turn out that that's a 2 a.m. batch job that runs every night, and it's known to consume a lot of resources. That's why it runs at 2 a.m. Or there may be other things in there that are just perfectly normal, that if you don't understand the traffic patterns and the load of your site, you misinterpret what's going on there. So it's very important to use New Relic regularly. And the other part of that is having relevant data in New Relic, because just what's happening with the site is one part of it, but also knowing when deployments are happening really helps you understand what's going on. Because if you've got to go look in New Relic at the performance graphs, but then go look in GitHub or somewhere else to find out when there were commits that led to deployments, like pull requests being merged or whatever, you end up wasting a lot of time trying to understand what's going on. Whereas if you're sending the notifications of the deployments into New Relic, you can see the traffic around that. So I'll jump into a quick demo now, and we can have a look at that. So up the top is my terminal. Down below is the site. So here's my test site. Here's the dev site. The other thing I've got going on here for my non-dev environment is a config import. So you'll get to see that as part of this demo as well. So what I'm going to do is update the site title using the configuration management in Drupal 8. So I'll commit this change. So we commit it and then push it. Now, Pantheon, their Quicksilver implementation treats dev differently to stage and production. So that's why here we're not actually going to see the title update when I do the refresh. So we see here that it just doesn't update. So, but when we, and so what we'll do is we'll go push these changes through to stage where we will see the change. So we tell Pantheon that we're updating the site title and to deploy this from dev to stage. So we see here that the deployment is occurring. It just takes a couple of seconds for this to run. Deployment stuff never makes for exciting presentations because it always takes so long. So now we have our stage site or test environment. We refresh here and we see that it now says automation demo. So our title has been updated. And then if we go here on New Relic, we see down the side we've got recent events. We'll refresh that list here and we'll see our most recent deployment show up there. And there we go. So that's actually showing it. And if we see here in these graphs, there's the bars which are actually showing us each of our deployments. So it's because we clear all the caches and things like that, it's quite common to see an increase in load around the time of a deployment. So that's actually very useful to be able to see that. And this is all handled by the Pantheon YAML file with the workflow, the Quicksilver workflows. And both of my examples were ripped off from the Quicksilver examples repo. So the first one we have here, now this needs to be updated for Drupal 8. Instead of doing a cache clear, it should be doing a cache rebuild. And then here is the New Relic one. The important bit here is at the end where we're calling the New Relic API to advise New Relic that we've actually got we've got a deployment happening. And we saw that when this gets called, the data ends up in New Relic. So that's very handy to see that kind of information side by side with the site performance. And if you're not hosting on Pantheon, you can do this with GitHub or Travis or whatever system you're using, you can make these calls to New Relic. So the next one I'm going to give an overview of. I'm not actually going to run through a demo of this one because basically it's been not behaving for me the 2 times I've tried getting it working reliably in a video. It does work, it just takes a bit of time. So we'll have a look at the flow and then we can, if you watch my talk in Dublin, you'll actually get to see this working properly. So the idea here is that we have 2 repos, one which all the developers have access to. which allows us to do whatever they need to do. They commit their changes, they push them to GitHub, they submit a pull request, and the target branches are protected branches and they have automation associated with them. And so when that pull request is submitted, we kick off tests being run with Circle CI or CodeShip or Travis or Jenkins or whichever CI server you want to run it with. And if those tests pass, then it would push those changes to the other repository. If, for example, it was platform.sh, it would then automatically deploy those changes for you to to your hosting environment. So that's the basic flow there. I will have a code example after Dublin to be able to share with people. But before I finish, I just really want to make the point that these days we iterate with our code. We spend a lot of time making small incremental changes with code and trying to get those changes live. Yet I see a lot of people wanting to do CI and also continuous delivery and deployment. And they see that they have to start big and do it all at once, and it then becomes overwhelming or too many resources are needed. Whereas a lot of these things I've talked about today, I've played around with them in my spare time and just built them out over time and had them as features that can then be used by people. Like the pre-commit hook. Now, when I work with clients, it's one of the things I get the developers to set up. I've also got a server-side version of that, so we can check both sides. So just iterate on these changes and don't try to do it all at once. But if you keep iterating, this is the type of system that you can end up with. But as you can see in this, it's a collection of small components that all work together in a coordinated way. And that should be the approach that you're striving for when you're building out a system like this. So thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate it.
What was that? It was very strange. It was very weird. Peculiar. It was kind of amusing. Yes, it was rather funny. It was incredibly funny. I loved it. Yeah, there it is.
And if you didn't like my session, maybe you'll enjoy Meet the Fables more. So, are there any questions?
Thanks, Dev. I think it was really interesting to look at how you're using different techniques to make sure a large part of what we normally do in a routine manner is totally automated, and we can be assured that things are getting deployed, things are working in a manner that would ensure quality in our delivery. Thank you, Dev. That was really useful. And any feedback any of you want to share? Thank you very much. So what are the other sessions you're doing today? I know you're really busy and you took time off to do it with us here.
Yeah. So this is my first of 3 presentations today. It's the same well, it's going to be slightly different each time, but It's the same talk 3 times. First today in Chennai. Next, I'm off to Ghent in Belgium. And then I finish up in St. Louis, Missouri at about 2 a.m. Australian time once I finish my presentation there.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I think a big round of applause from all of us here. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I know you're going to be in India soon. Is that sometime in October?
Yeah, so I actually fly out on Saturday morning, Australian time, and I'll be in Mumbai for a week. I've got some meetings there, and then
Okay.
I'll be in Dublin for a week, and then I'll be back in Mumbai for another 2 weeks after DrupalCon. And during my second trip, we're looking at trying to organise a meetup or something else in Mumbai. So there'll be something happening there.
You let us know, and we'll try and have something around the same dates in Chennai where some of us join you, probably remotely on Google again. Yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah,
Dave.
that'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck with the rest of your training day.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, we had a couple of sessions in the morning. We had Piyush and Hussein from Pune and Bangalore joining us. After this, we have our own Chennai guys presenting and talking Drupal UI, a lot more on Drupal 8 Composer and other work around Drupal 8 itself.
Oh, great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, have a good day, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you in